All right, so today I had a viewer comment that they were kind of interested in getting into other ways of sharpening because for 20 years they'd only been using Norton/Indiana stones. I think that's what they said. And they were curious about waterstone sharpening and diamond plates. For now, this is just going to be a very brief overview to get you all settled in. So first, I don't really have any natural stones except for these two. These are only two natural stones that I have. I don't know where they came from in terms of, what company these came from or, anything like that. Just looking at scratch patterns and stuff like that, I can tell you that this one is finer than this one. This one's probably, in terms of the edge, is like a 2,000, 3,000 kind of grit range. This is more of a 800 to 1,000 scratch pattern, but it's probably closer to the 1,000 grit range. I got these secondhand, so again, I don't have like any information about where they came from, the boxes. These are definitely not Japanese stones, and they're very small. They don't mud at all. I don't really use them very much, and the thing with natural stones, being that they came from the earth, right? They're made naturally. The grit that they are is not uniform from stone to stone, and it's not even uniform within the stone that you have itself. So it's quite a large spectrum of whatever this grit is. And also being that these are just, rocks, their ability to cut various steels is quite limited. So now, in terms of the water stones that I'm going to be talking about, all of the water stones that I have used and that I own are all synthetic. So they're all man-made. I will go into the diamond plates first because there's a lot less to talk about. And the main thing I want to get into is the water stones because this is primarily what I use the most. Diamonds they're perfectly fine to sharpen with. In fact, they're probably the lowest lowest maintenance item in terms of sharpening that you can get. They'll cut any steel, so you don't have to worry about carbide tear out, which is only kind of really a thing with like 3 steels. So they work pretty fast. They remain flat throughout their entire life so long as they're mounted properly. This one's mounted on an aluminum base. So long as they're mounted properly, they'll remain flat their whole life. They work pretty quickly. You don't need water, although if you're like me and you find that the sound in the gritty gravel road kind of feel that they have to be kind of off-putting, you can put water on them to kind of soften the feel so it's not quite as gross. The one thing about diamonds, 2 things about diamonds, is that don't leave water, like a large amount of water, to just dry on the plate. You can dunk these. I use this side as a stone flattener for my water stones, so this sees a lot of water. But just don't get in the habit of just leaving a bunch of water on it and just letting it just dry there for days, because what can happen is, depending on what kind of plating material they used and also what the plates are mounted to, you can have the stone rust, and then that can cause the diamond abrasive to get more easily jostled loose and rip out of the stone. I'm also going to say stone in reference to plates, but I think we all know what I'm talking about in this regard. You don't have to spend a whole lot of money. If you're looking for the highest quality diamond stone, but when we're talking about plated diamonds, for the least amount of money, I would say probably look at the Sharpening diamonds. Those are probably some of the best in terms of a bench stone kind of configuration. I mainly got this one just for flattening the diamond stones. But these are great because they can be portable, like in the DMT difold. These have a plastic base, and they're color coded, made in the USA. Unfortunately, DMT has had some quality control issues throughout the years, and yeah, so things are kind of going downhill for them. Hopefully they can recover, but diamonds can be small and portable. You don't need water. They don't need to be flattened. They cut any steel. Drawbacks. For me, I have an issue with my hearing. I'm pretty sure I have tinnitus in my right ear. So sharpening on diamond plates can be quite unpleasant sometimes, depending on the sound that they make. The feeling is pretty gross, very gravel road feeling. And then once you get to like 800, 1000 grit, it's kind of, when they're brand new, you still have a little bit of tactile feedback, but then they smooth out pretty quick and you lose that good feeling. And then it can be a little bit difficult for newer people to figure out if they're on the bevel, if they're a little too far forward or too far backwards, I should say. So feedback can also be an issue. Last issue is that these are a lot more sensitive to pressure. So if you push really, really hard, you can rip the diamonds out of the plating. So watch your pressure. You don't need a whole lot of pressure with diamonds. Be careful with that. Other than that, honestly, so long as you don't care about the feeling or anything like that, you just want some sharp, diamonds are great. You can get them pretty cheap. They last for a good amount of time. And you can get all sorts of different sizes. They can be portable, throw them in a backpack, etc. Water stones. So I go back and forth on this about what water stones a beginner should get. And a lot of beginners want to get something like, these. You see them on Amazon all the time. This particular brand happens to be Aovempt, but these are just, fly-by-night companies that spring up on Amazon. They may or may not be around in a couple months. And all these stones kind of look the same. They all feel the same. And they all have very similar characteristics. And before I've kind of thought of these are good beginner stones just to kind of figure out whether or not you're going to like the process of waterstone sharpening. Waterstone sharpening is very ritualistic. It's very kind of meditative and it's very repetitive. If you're not that kind of personality and you don't like these kind of things, it's going to suck when you're spending $40 or $50 on a single stone and then just to find out that you don't like the whole process. That's kind of where I used to be at. Now I'm kind of in the camp that I don't think these are super great beginner stones. None of these stones are accurately graded. This is the highest it goes up to. It says 3,000, 8,000. These are nowhere close to even a 1,000 grit stone. The higher up in grit you go, the more expensive stones get. And you are just not going to get 4-stone combo with the base and, all the junk that they give you for 25, 30, even $40. You're just not going to get that with quality stones. So they're not accurately graded. Another problem with these is that they're not even accurate in the sequence. What I mean by that is that the sequence here is 400, 1,000, 3,000, 8,000. That's how they labeled them. However, this is incorrect in that the 3,000 is actually the most aggressive out of the 4. Then it goes to the 400. And then honestly, the 1,000 and the 8,000 are pretty close together in terms of their grit range, their polish, all that. One thing you may be seeing, I don't know how well that's coming across on camera, but that 3,000 side is super uneven and all over the place. This 3,000 side just disintegrates. It falls apart. It does not stay flat at all. it dishes extremely quickly. The other sides aren't too bad, but that's another problem with these stones, is that they really get out of flat really quickly, and they just have so much slurry come up from the stone that it actually kind of gets in the way of sharpening, and you don't get a super great edge from these. So I would stay away from them. Another thing, these have been permanently soaking since I've got them. I don't know how long I've had them, and this issue is not due to permanently soaking, by the way. But they've been permanently soaking, and these still don't hold water at all. The water just runs right through it. I just took them out a couple minutes ago. I don't know if we can see the water. Just kind of absorbing up through the stone. This is not typical behavior. Once a stone has been thoroughly soaked, the water should just sit on top of the stone. And soak time for these is indefinite. You're never going to get these to stop taking water. So don't recommend you get these cheap Amazon stones. All right, so let's go on to actual quality water stones here. So the thing to note about water stones is that they do need maintenance. Sure that they're flat, which, so long as you stay on top of it, it's not really a huge issue. When you do flatten them, take down the corners or the edges so that they're not sharp. This can prevent things from, like the corner, from digging into your edge and being an unsightly thing, or it can even be a stress riser in the stone, and it can lead to cracking if you're not careful about it. Another thing with maintenance is you need to make sure that you clean any swarf. Swarf is the abraded steel that came off of your knife when it's in the stone. You need to make sure that you clean that out, or else it can rust on the stone. Do not try to force these to dry. Don't put them under a fan or a heater. Don't put them in direct sunlight. Most of these stones will tell you that, although because a lot of them come from Japan, it's mostly in hiragana or katakana, so you probably won't be able to read it. But don't try to force these to dry. I have a bucket, like those Easter buckets. I have one of those. It's empty, and when I'm done with them, I just stick them in there and just let them dry. And if it's the Syrax, it's going to take a number of days for it to dry out, because I used this thing probably 3 days ago. This still has water inside of it. So it's still not dry. So if I put this back in its original cardboard box, it would eventually disintegrate the box. Some of these higher grit stone, this is a 3000, it's a 4, and this side is a 6000. These stones can get kind of clogged with swarf and steel, and then as you keep trying to rub your knife on the stone, they can get kind of burnished, and it can sort of slow down the cutting speed and the performance of the stone. So you really want to make sure that every now and then just check it out. Make sure if you see any spots of it that are glossy. I just used water on this stone, so that's why it looks like this. So, but if you look at it and it looks like somebody put clear coat over the stone, you need to clean it out, especially with these higher grits. You can do that with a Nagura, which is basically just like another chunk of stone. These are pretty inexpensive, and what you do is you obviously soak the Nagura, have that soaked as well, and then when you take it out, scrub all alongside it until you build a good slurry on top of the stone, then wipe all that off, and then you're good to go. So Nagura is good. You can also use a rust eraser. These are really cheap. These last for a really long time, and these are kind of rubbery. You can use that to clean out the stone. It's way less abrasive than a Nagura is. The benefit to the Nagura is that you can kind of bring up more fresh abrasive in the stone when you're using this versus the rust eraser. Next thing is just to pick out good quality stones. And this is where you're going to have the biggest issues, is because obviously you don't know what you don't know. So everyone has their certain preference, things that they like. I like a very plush, soft feel, so I like these king stones quite a bit. Almost everybody universally loves the Syrax, um, but other people like really, really hard stones, and those really, really hard stones can sometimes feel pretty dead. But you need to kind of know what you're looking to get out of a stone. So that's all I got for this part. Again, I can go into further detail about each kind of stone in the future, but I just wanted to get this out here. So if you've never used water stones before, if you've never used diamond plates before, you at least have some basic cursory knowledge to help you in the future.